September of 2020, I went back to work. I had been off for 12 weeks. I had things figured out, and I had my meds right. Things were going okay, but it didn't last. In October, I had a second, more serious mental collapse. My hours amped up at work when I returned to full workload. I was back to working 60 to 70 hours per week. I was working from home, and with that kind of workload, I would roll out of bed about 6:30 a.m., start work at 7 a.m., and often work until 7 p.m. at night or later. There was no work-life balance, no time to decompress after work. When I wasn't working, all I could do was ruminate about work. My anxiety would build about the workload I would be facing the next day, then I would get depressed about the inability to perform the essential functions of my job. I was on the verge of being terminated from a company I love and that I wanted to work for because I couldn't do my job. The thought of being fired spun me into a frenzy of what-if scenarios and catastrophic thinking about the future. If I lost my job, we would lose our insurance. We would lose about 60% of our household income. We would lose our only running car. We would lose our house. We wouldn't be able to cover our day-to-day expenses. Our debt would skyrocket out of control. The lists would never end. They would build for hours into the night. Even sedated, I was only getting about 5 hours of sleep per night. I was beyond exhausted every day, which led to mistakes and work that was not acceptable. Fridays were worse because I knew there was nothing I could do on Saturdays or Sundays to catch up or clear the decks. My job at the time was a Monday through Friday position only, so the anxiety and the depression would reach critical mass by noon on Sunday. When the second collapse came, it hit me like an avalanche of despair and failure. I was ready to find a more permanent solution to my problem. I didn't want to die, but in the middle of my illness, there was no relief in sight. I just wanted the mental torment, the turmoil to end. I didn't want to feel sick anymore. I didn't want to feel anything anymore. I didn't want the end to hurt. I didn't want to screw up my final solution either. Car accidents, firearms, and jumping off of or in front of anything had the largest margins for error and also had a better than average chance of hurting. All of these were out. So was cutting my wrists or femoral artery. I didn't want the pain or the mess. On October 5th, 2020, my wife saved my life. My darkest day, she kept me present. She knew something was off, something was wrong. She messaged me a couple of times from work and my answers were all over the place. She came home early and sat with me. The next day, October 6th, was her birthday. Instead of celebrating, we drove to the emergency room. I was done. I was suicidal. I was giving up. She didn't. Over the next couple of hours, I was placed under observation. We sat together in the emergency room, we talked to a doctor, then we talked to a therapist. We came up with a safety plan, something to get me to my next counseling session on October 8th. I was given crisis intervention numbers. I was sent home. To describe the next 2 days as white knuckle was an understatement. The only thing I trusted myself to do was sit on the couch with Michelle and stream Netflix or Amazon Prime. I also relied heavily on my Xbox One to keep me distracted from my most destructive thoughts. Michelle and Dominic didn't let me out of their sight. My dog, Sully, stayed close to me, kept an eye on me, kept me safe. They kept me alive for those 2 days while I waited to get into my next counseling session. At my next session, I told my therapist about what I was going through, the suicidal ideation, the thoughts of being a failure, about being okay with ending it all. He helped refer me to a partial hospitalization program. I was waitlisted, but within 24 hours I was admitted to the PHP at Mayo Clinic in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. The simple truth was I needed to be somewhere during the day where I would be safe and I would get the help I needed to survive. I didn't know what to expect when I showed up on the first day, but I knew it had to be better than where I was at that moment in time. The best piece of wisdom I received while at the hospital is that I have survived 100% of the worst days of my life. I survived my mother dying, my father-in-law dying, having to sell our dream house, even the day I was close to ending it all. I survived. Every day I make a to-do list. The first item on the list, regardless of the day of the week, the one that must be crossed off without fail, is survive. Some days my only goal is to survive, and that has to be enough. There is no what if, there is just surviving one day at a time. Some days are good, some days are not so good. Neither one matters. All that matters is making it to the next one. They gave me a fat rubber band when I checked into PHP, a reminder to stay flexible. I wore it every day for 6 months until it finally broke. We also created an anchor well in the program, a token to remind us who we are. There are only 4 items on my anchor. I am a filmmaker. I am a father. I am a husband. I am loved. For me, that's everything, and they are enough.